Well, hello and welcome to our Subconscious Speaks. My name is Don Robert, and together with my amazing, talented, Prince-loving bestie,
Tina Orlando.
And together we are
Tina Orlando.
And Don. And Tina, we've got a special guest today. Let's bring him in. Joe Burns, honors graduate from HMI, our beloved HMI, instructor at HMI, life changer at HMI. And if you don't know Joe, which is going to be rare that our listeners don't, but just so you know, he's a peak performance coach. He founded the Mind on Purpose, which we're going to get into today. And for 20 years, Joe has helped Wall Street traders, athletes, artists to all master their mindset using NLP, hypnosis, and intention-driven change. I love that about Joe. It's what connects. We have so many things that connect us, brother. Joe, hello and welcome to our Subconscious Speaks. Thanks for being here today.
Tina, John, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's quite the pleasure.
It's
I love the purple
pleasure.
background.
You like the background?
I do. How'd you get to HMI, Joe? Tell us how you got from where you were to HMI.
It was a really interesting, long, roundabout journey. I have this area here out in the valley in California where I seem to have always worked, like the DeSoto exit off of the 101. And HMI, as you guys probably know, has a sign right off the 101. And I even longer than 20 years ago, I would pass that, and I always wondered, and I even took a tour a couple times of the school. And then I started going in 2016, I think, and I was still in the stock market. I was a trainer in the stock market. I was a national speaker for Investors Business Daily for some time. Then I went out on my own, and I ran around the world doing workshops and seminars on the stock market. And I'd kind of gotten burned out on working with traders because, you know, the stock market is very much human psychology on parade. And, most traders turn into gamblers because they just don't follow the rules. And I realized that I have this saying that I talk about with all my clients and our students: we don't get what we want, we get who we are, right? What we want is our conscious mind, speaking of Subconscious Speaks, right? And that's our desires, that's our willpower, that's our reason, that's our logic. Who we are is our programming. And that's largely done to us as we're growing, and I'm sure we'll get deeper and deeper into that up until a certain point by our teachers, by our parents, by our peers, by our tribe, and so I really felt it was about going back and getting, mastering the subconscious mind. I didn't really necessarily want to work with traders. I do work with traders still. I do work with athletes and artists. I actually work with guys on relationship stuff a lot. I do work with some teens. And I do work with some women on relationship stuff and that have had trauma, and I didn't foresee that. But I was a college athlete. I was a walk-on at Villanova, and I really, quite honestly, wasn't good enough to play there. And I'd taken what I didn't know at the time was an NLP course, and they did a little thing on self-hypnosis, and that was kind of my early exposure to it. And really, I had to use my mind because my body wasn't big enough or fast enough or strong enough to really play with these guys. And and I did. I played even as a walk-on, I was a special teams guy and that sort of thing. But it really kind of led me into this idea of peak performance and what is it that makes certain people, outperform other people, even maybe if they weren't nearly as talented. And so that's really what got me fascinated with it. So I went back, I guess it was probably about 8 years ago properly, after that last job in the stock market, didn't work out. And I promised that I was going to get back to HMI, and I did. And the rest is as they say. Yeah.
That's great.
Walk on. So Joe and I have that in common, right? Both. I didn't walk on. I went to a junior college. But I did, after the first 3 games of the season, I took away the starting fullback's position and I became the starter. So that was kind of exciting, but it was a small little, I think, Dean Junior College outside of Boston, private junior college. But I had the dream was to walk on to the NFL. That was the dream. And then unfortunately drugs and alcohol superseded all of that for me. Front seat. I don't know how I even played at the level that I did. Only I think it was the desire and the belief. So I wonder if that's where the Mind on Purpose started for you.
Yeah, desire and belief go a long way. I believe in belief. And, what we're always working on, especially with the subconscious mind, is we're working on our clients' belief systems, right?
Mhm.
And, again, we develop that belief systems as we develop our programming, really up until about 8 or 9 years old, we're constantly in this open hypnotic, kind of state. If you think about it, I really kind of like this as a behaviorist. I come at it like we're hunter gatherers. We're animals. We're human animals, but we are hunter gatherers. We have the same neurochemistry as our ancestors. It's just that neurochemistry gets hacked by all of these modern things. We have drugs that were way stronger than the plant medicines that our ancestors used. I have guys that deal with pornography. I have, lots of social media stuff, right? That algorithm is designed after our own algorithm. And, I do work with people in addiction a bit. And so that ancient neurochemistry and the hardware gets hacked by all this modern software. But if you think about it as animals go, we are about as helpless and hopeless for the longest. Little gazelle better hit the ground running, or the lions are going to get it. A little lion better hit the ground running, or a hyena is going to get it. But I mean, we are so reliant, especially on our mother, for mother's milk, for protection, for safety. And so we're constantly in learning mode. And really, I think people get a lot of misnomers about hypnosis, and we can kind of talk about that a little bit. But really, it's a learning state. It's how we learn and how we take in information. And then what filters that once we start to develop that programming, what protects that programming. We call it our knowns, right? Our knowns versus things that are unknown to us. And so as we are 0 to 8, we're in that constant learning mode. We're watching our parents, we're watching our family members. Back in the day, we would learn from our tribe. We evolved really to be in tribes of 150, 200 people. We weren't evolved to be in big cities or have 5,000 Facebook friends commenting on everything that we do, even though we've never met them. And so, that has a lot to do with kind of how we interact with the modern world.
Yeah, we weren't meant to be in big tribes, but we weren't meant to be solo either. So we're in this conundrum right now with
one of my favorite sayings is there's this Aboriginal saying that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that's kind of a cool saying, like in this tribal thing. So really what this all comes down to is homeostasis. So the body has homeostasis. If we get too hot, we sweat, so we cool off and we don't overheat and die. If we get too cold, we'll shiver so that we warm up, right? And that's bodily homeostasis, right? A cell, if it's lacking something, will draw it in from the outside, right, and expel it to keep that cellular homeostasis. Well, our mind is the same way. And so I think of that homeostasis as a base camp, and I'll explain what I mean by that. If we were going to hike up Mount Everest, right? Let's say we train for a whole year at altitude. We're still not going to go straight up the mountain. We would literally die from the lack of air in the altitude. The altitude is getting thinner and thinner. And so whether I'm working with an athlete or an artist or somebody that's trying to get over something, that homeostasis that they've developed now, right? So they want more than that. They want to break out. So if we were going to hike up Mount Everest, we would go up to base camp 1. We would literally spend 2 or 3 weeks there, acclimating to the higher altitude. We would have our tools, our ropes, our clamps, and all of that. We would be shining them and gathering them ready for the next climb. And when we'd acclimated, now we make that next climb to that next base camp. And as we're going up, eventually we, base camp 2, we'd spend a few weeks. And then base camp 3, we would spend a week until the weather was right and we'd summit. Cool thing in life, though, is there's no actual summit, until they put us in the ground. So we want to keep working on these base camps. And, as we're breaking out of that in terms of homeostasis. So I like, what my young guys really love is the video game analogy. And so, if we're looking at different levels of a video game, let's say we're at level 10, that map is all going to be lit up, right? But we're not going to go from level 10 to level 20 because we're not ready. Like that's the unknown. We want to just kind of dance on the edge of the unknown because our subconscious mind hates the unknown. It doesn't like that. We'll actually move towards something, like I always joke, we will move toward the devil that we know and away from the angel that we so desperately want because of this idea of homeostasis and these knowns. And so if you think about it, let's say we were trying to go from level 10 to level 20. Well, I'm not a huge gamer, but let's say there's some big boss we've got to defeat at level 20. Well, we're not ready yet. for that big boss at level 20. Maybe at 11, we would get our sword, and at level 12, we would get our shield, and at level 13, we would get our armor, and at level 14, we get our health potions, because we're going to need a lot of that because he's a badass, you know? But if we tried to skip, now we'd also don't want to sit there and play at level 3 or 4. It would just be boring. You know, we've already mastered those levels, and that would be boring. So we want to kind of push ourselves on that edge of that unknown, of that homeostasis. Now, the other thing that I like to say about video games is the thing about NPCs. You guys know what an NPC is, right? An NPC is a non-player character, okay? It's like an extra in a movie. And I ask my clients, you know, what do you think that NPC is there for? They're like, oh, they're just part of the game. No, they're there part of our game. So the NPCs are all the other people in our lives that are not main player characters in our game. So let's say your spouse or your partner in business or your coach or something, that would be a main player character, but they're also running their game. And so really what we want to do is get in co-creation with those other main player characters of our game. So we are now working as a tribe, right? We are working as a team and as a tribe. And that's the way I like, you know, to look at it as a coach with my clients. But we don't want to give those non-player characters main player character energy, because they're there. So in a video game, they might be there to give us a map or a key, or I think the kids call it an Easter egg or something like that.
Right.
So they're there, right? Because we are all the hero in our own hero's journey. We're all the author of our own story. And I like this idea also that we talk about in NLP and modalities. We're also the director of that. And we can edit it. We can edit those stories because we already have, right? One of my favorites is Joe Dispenza when he talks about, you know, this concept of being, you know, creating a whole new identity, creating a whole new you, you know, from his book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And the concept of that is that if we wake up every morning and we do the same old thing, brush our teeth the same way, go to the bathroom the same way, drive to work the same way, you know, then we're basically just running an old pattern of our past life. So our future becomes very, very predictable because, of course, we're running the same program, we're running the same pattern. And so really it's about how do we break out of that homeostasis? How do we break out? How do we build our team and get our climbing going up to that next base camp? And so for my clients, it's really, what is that all about? What is it that they want so we can change out who they are,
right,
to get what they want?
I love that. Yeah. Characters in a game. I've had this kind of seep into my consciousness on social media when I allow myself to do some scrolling and people talking about that it's all really just a simulation.
Yeah.
And that we're really in charge of it all. But very few people tap into that, and really what you're talking about with Dispenza and being on purpose, right?
Yeah, and
being mindful about that which you want to create.
And the reason I call my business the Mind on Purpose, and I'll have people come to me and say, okay, what is this Mind on Purpose? I want to find out my purpose. What is my purpose? And I tell people, you know, in order to find your purpose, let's first get on purpose. Let's get intentional. And what that means is having some practices, you know, and we'll talk about that. As far as the simulation, back to Joe D, you know, what he would then say as the caveat is the best way to have the future that you want is to create it, not to keep living the past. And so that's about giving tools and techniques and that sort of thing. And so some of those practices would be, so when we are coming out of sleep in the morning, we're very suggestible. And we want to talk about this idea of suggestibility. Because if I think of anything, yeah, I'm a flow coach, a law of attraction coach, if you will. But if anything, I'm also a suggestibility coach. Right. And I really want my clients to understand how their suggestibility works so that they're not suggestible to the things they don't want to be suggestible to. Right. Yeah. And so, you know, the bottom line is my dog's usually really good here. He's making some noise. I'm just going to text my wife to please let him up. So the idea is that, you know, if we can then use that half hour in the morning. So in the half hour in the morning when we're coming out of deep sleep and we are going into awareness, which we would call beta, but it's not important to talk about the, you know, the different things that are going to happen in that. And so we are going through a very suggestible phase. And so we want to be very good about, there we go, texted her. So hopefully, usually he's my little partner in crime. He's my little shaman down here, but he's getting restless. So, should bring him over so you guys can meet him.
Tina's got her hypno cats in the background. They haven't made an appearance yet, but they're there.
Yep. There's one back there.
You want to come over here? Come here. Okay, so this idea of in the morning in that first half hour, when we're getting to highly aware, we're very suggestible. So we really want to protect that suggestibility. You don't want to be on social media at that time, doom scrolling. You know, you don't want to be going through your emails or things like that. You want to use that first half hour. I love, you know, doing breath work and giving that to my clients. I love, you know, meditation. That's my workout time. That's my time to kind of get my suggestibility, get my mind on purpose for the rest of the day. And then at the end of the day, we're going through the reverse, right? We've been aware all day long, getting all this overload from all the stuff from the day. We call it message units. And then that last half hour of the day, we're highly wide open. I was just doing this with one of my groups. I have a women's group, and we were doing this whole 8-week manifestation group. And I said, I'll give you an example. Let's have some fun with this. And so it was right before Mother's Day. And I said, hey, I'd like to give my mom a really nice, expensive purse before. I was just holding up my phone and saying this, right? And purse, expensive purse, but handbag, blah, blah, blah. And I said, let's check my Facebook feed in 20 minutes. And of course, we're all the ads full of, right? The handbags, backpacks, all these types. And that's kind of to think about it. Or like if you have, I don't have Alexa because, you know, yeah, I don't like everything always listening to me all the time. But if, you know, if you have Alexa, you know, she's always listening in the background. And all you have to do is say, hey, Alexa, and boom, it's right there. But she's been listening. And so that's the way that subconscious mind is when we're highly open like this. Our critical filter's kind of checked out. And so we want to use that last half hour, right? Again, we don't want to be doom scrolling or doing those types of things. So at HMI, we have this great, I guess we could call it a technique called mental bank that we teach our students, and it's really powerful. I don't have time to do that at the very beginning. I will teach them that eventually, but I give them this in the very first session. I call it my to-done list. It's kind of like a little mini mental bank. And what it means is most of us, when we're going to sleep, especially if we are driven towards a goal or something, we're going over our to-do list, and it's all the stuff that we didn't get done that day. Oh, I forgot to go to the bank. I forgot to call Tom back, you know. Oh, Tina, emailed me. Right. And so what we're really sending our subconscious mind to sleep with is, I didn't do enough today. I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. And so I want my clients and myself to count our victories. I call it my to-done list, right? So nice. It's really, and it can be the things you did, going to the bank, calling Don back, but it's really when we alchemize something toxic into something beautiful. What did the alchemists in the old days do? They turned poisonous metals like a lead into a beautiful precious metal like a gold. And they were always looking for the philosopher's stone and how to do that. So our philosopher's stone is in alchemizing something. It's how do we go from, oh, this happened to me, to it happened for me, and then eventually through me. And I keep this around all the time, like right here at my desk for my little examples. But, you know, I don't know what the watt is on this. I guess I should know, probably 60 or 90, right? But if we try to put 1,000 watts through this, it's going to explode. And so what we're all trying to do is expand our vessel, and so that we can channel more energy, more abundance, more money, more love, more flow. And that's what all these practices about getting on purpose are. So what I have my clients do at the very end of the day is count their victories, go through their to-done list. And yes, the things they might have done, right? But it's more the things they alchemize, those bigger wins. I really want them emphasizing that. And then right as they're going to sleep, what are the I ams in the present tense? While that mind's wide open, right? Saying it in the present tense in a positive, affirmative way. Now, one more concept on this. So the reason that most affirmations don't work for people is because they do it with this thing we're going to talk about called the critical mind present, right? So if I'm aware and my critical mind is sitting on my shoulder. So the critical mind is that little 8-9-year-old. We develop it when we're 8-9 years old, right? And what its job is to protect the subconscious mind, to protect the knowns and unknowns. And it acts like a little bouncer, right? So the bouncer at the nightclub or the VIP room, he's not a dumb guy, but he's a big guy that they give real simple instructions. Don't let anybody in that is not on the list. Don't let anybody in you don't recognize, that's not familiar or known to you, if that makes sense. And so let's say a woman who comes to me and says, been in an abusive relationship, maybe was abused by her father and then a husband or a partner. And she comes down and says, I want this loving relationship now. Well, if she brings that to the nightclub and the bouncer's going to go, I'm sorry, I don't recognize, you look like this cute little girl who hired me when you were 8, but when she was 8, and I don't recognize you and I don't recognize your friend that wants to come in this loving relationship thing. And so it's going to kick it out, right? So even though we equate the known with safe, which doesn't make any sense in that situation, right? Because the known is abuse. But we will go back to the devil that we know and away from the angel that we want, because we equate this known with safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff, man. I need to interrupt the flow just for a moment. Is the purple background intentional because it's Prince's birthday? Or is that just standard for
I've
Joe?
forgotten. No, but
How
yes,
could you forget?
I'll take credit for that.
Okay.
As long as it's not going to be raining purple rain.
Yeah, it's Prince Day, right, Tina?
It is Prince Day. Today is his birthday.
Wait,
We
is
all
that
have some shade of purple going on.
Is that
What
who
is that?
behind?
Yeah, that's a one of a kind
Oh, that's
photo.
so cool.
The only other one
Very
that
similar to mine.
exists is
minus
Bletchley
Sans
Park.
Prince over here. So I got the woods, but Sans Prince. Is
Yes.
that a little red Corvette in the back?
No, it's a purple Prowler, which was also his.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course.
You're
it
wearing
was
the
a
purple,
purple
I can see,
Prowler.
so there you go. Awesome.
Well, it's a Prince thing today.
Prince.
Not every day, but today especially. So,
Awesome.
but anyway, back to a different flow state. So I know that you're big on flow state, correct?
Yeah.
What do you think are some key takeaways for people to really try to get into it and know that they're in that state? Like, it's not a negotiation. Like, oh, maybe I am, maybe I'm not.
Mhm.
Like,
I love that. So we always say, right, if you're wondering if you're in hypnosis, you are. If you're wondering in flow, you're not, right?
see what I did there?
I do think the two states are very similar.
Mm.
But I do think that the wondering kind of goes out the window when you're in flow. So flow, the concept of flow was started by a gentleman named Csikszentmihalyi. Try spelling it. It's quite a name. And Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi. And then a guy named Stephen Kotler really took his work and ran with it. And so they really use a lot of times like extreme athletes, like the guys that climb up rocks with the ropes. But it's not just extreme athletes or athletes. It is like guys that like gaming, coding. So it's something, the flow state is really something that you enjoy, but it's pushing your limits. Again, you're on the edge of the unknown, right? You're not so far in the unknown, but you're not in that boring state of level 2 and 3, right? Where you've already played. And so it's that idea of pushing yourself, and at the same time, you're doing something that you really enjoy. Now, there's lots of different ways you can get flow. Sometimes flow just happens, right? Sometimes you just have that day where you feel like everything's going right and you're channeling it and you go, gosh, how do I bottle this? Sometimes we have to use a little force. And so there are some, more coaching techniques that I use along with the hypnosis and the NLP. One of my big ones is breathwork. And you can do really uplifting breathwork, like a Wim Hof breathwork. Cold plunge after that, which is, another big thing in the Wim Hof methodology, gets that dopamine going. I use that in the morning to kind of really, before I gotta jump into the day and start the emails and start the phone calls and things like that. But you can also do very, very light breath work. One of my favorite neuroscientists is a guy named Andrew Huberman, who has his own podcast, and I highly recommend. It's almost like he's a Stanford professor. And it's
Brilliant
almost,
guy.
you watch his podcast and it's almost like getting a free master's at Stanford. Now, you're not going to have the degree, obviously, but he really puts a lot into these podcasts. He has something that's called NSDR, non-sleep deep rest. And it's very much like Yoga Nidra. And it's basically you are calming the body, but you're still aware. You're putting the body to sleep, but you're still aware. It's a very rhythmic, like breathing, going kind of through body awareness. And it's great for athletes, for artists. It's great for all of us. Number one, it's about 20 minutes, they say, is about 4 or 5 hours of really good, deep, restful sleep. So I tell my clients, instead of hitting the snooze bar in the morning, because, it's like when we do reactional hypnosis, eyes open, eyes closed, they're going deeper each time, right? You hit that snooze bar, you're going deeper and deeper. But if you get up out of bed and you go to the couch, so I like to go over to my couch over here in my office, and I'll just lay calm. I'll put on some meditation music or maybe a guided one. And that kind of drops me into a real nice flow state before I get my day going. So you can use a little force, or you can, I always say you can get really active. And Don, you'll appreciate this, playing football. We were just like, run through that wall of guys, And so my whole life was very much like force. Really been working these last few years on getting still and getting calm, and that's more of a challenge for me because as we were always even I can remember I was a high school sprinter. I was like, right about this, and I was like, and my coach had to teach me to really have a sense of flow and ease even as a sprinter, and it made me such a better sprinter when I stopped all the tension. And so I think flow is the opposite of tension. It's the opposite of that, and so for the clients, when we're getting them into hypnosis, I feel very much like I am showing them and their subconscious mind, this is what flow feels like. This is what flow is like. And then we want to give them some techniques to get into flow when they need it, when they're not in flow.
Yeah.
Flow state also has to do with the breath work and heart rate coherence.
Yeah.
Heart rate. So the slower one would be like a heart
Right.
rate, it's like a 5 or 6 inhale and a 5 or 6 exhale. Yeah, it's really great.
Right. And a lot of people that do, non-athletic things that do get into flow state, that's where they're finding themselves.
Yeah.
Athletes find themselves in a different, more of like a hyper flow state, I would say.
Yeah,
because that's the
call
more
it in the zone, but I work with some
Yeah.
comedians and some actors, and it's like, how do they get into that before they step on stage? I've worked with really phenomenal comedians, and this is hopefully going to take us in a good place if you guys want to go there. But so, for example, stage fright. A couple guys that I've worked with, they're so incredibly funny, but it's really where, again, back to an old Joe D saying, where our focus goes, our energy flows. And so if that comedian is about to step on stage and he's thinking of the last time he bombed, that's where his focus is going to go, right? He's not resourced. But if he's focusing on being, if he's allowing himself to be in flow and focusing on the times when he was there, now he's, what the comedians call it is in the pocket, the athletes call it being in the zone. And now he's just channeling that flow. And so they can do a little breath work before they get on. It can be the calmer or the more uplifting, but it's really just focusing on what we want versus, the outcome that we don't, because it all starts with awareness. And you think about it back to our hunter-gatherer ancestors, everything was trying to eat them or kill them, or they were trying to eat it or, And so if we saw a tiger, well, first off, let's say that let's say we were on the way to hunt or the watering hole, and that's what we're focused on, right? But all of a sudden now we see a big fresh tiger print. Our reticular activating system, it's that part of our brain that determines what we focus on, what we give our focus to, but really it's what we're prioritizing, right? So that comedian is prioritizing his focus on failure, on the tiny bomb, right? As opposed to prioritizing and getting in the state, we call it, it's how you feel at any given moment, right? Confident versus, oh my gosh, am I gonna bomb again? Very hard to go out there and kill it when you're focusing on the times that you bomb. And so if we saw that tiger print, our focus, our priority is not going to be as much on the hunt or the watering hole. It's going to be, where's that tiger? And so if that bush over there starts moving, we're not going to be, thinking it's just our tribe coming out to help us hunt, or maybe, we're going to go, that's a damn tiger. Now, here's the crazy thing. And you all know this from working, especially around phobias. Like, for example, we call fear of flying a fear of flying, but it's really more of phobia, because most people have not had that near-death experience flying, right? But what happens, so let's say that we're looking at the bush moving and we start to go into fight, flight, freeze, but then, like our mom comes out and says, honey, you forgot your peanut butter and jelly sandwich on the hunt, right? Well, what's going to happen is then our subconscious is actually going to link, oh, I see, if I stress, if I go into fight, flight, freeze, and I get really, kind of in that, I got all the cortisol and the adrenaline going, and then safety happens. I have manifested safety through all of that, fight, flight, freeze, which is the exact opposite, right? And so when somebody has a fear of flying, they're running to the airport, they're stressed about missing their flight, they grab a coffee, get their blood sugar all out of whack, they make their flight, they finally sit down, they take off, and then a little turbulence hits and they freak out. But then they land safe and their subconscious mind goes, oh, all of that freak out was worth it, because that's what made us. So we associate that. The way that we learn, well, there's a lot of ways, but the two major ways that we learn are repetition of something or a real powerful association of something. And the more powerful the association, the less we have to repeat it, right? But let's say the tiger does come out. So if that tiger comes out, now there's a real threat. What's happening to our focus? Our focus is getting very tunnel vision. We wouldn't even notice if the rest of our tribe came up to help us, because we're only focused on the threat. Right? Our pupils dilate. Our breathing changes. It gets very shallow. It's up here. It's basically, the breathing is saying there's a threat. It's game time.
Yeah.
And that's good. I don't want my athletes doing calm breath work, but I don't want them so overexcited that they aren't in flow, because that high agitation is anything but flow. What else is changing? Is our blood moving to our creative parts? Tina, are we thinking about writing a poem about this beautiful tiger? I got it done. Let's do a cave painting. Get back to the cave. We'll do a cave painting. Go get that yellow that you know how to make, and we'll do a beautiful cave painting. No, right? We just don't want to become dinner. And so are we worried about a virus? Are we worried about COVID? No, right? Because COVID will kill you slow, and this thing's going to kill you really fast. So our blood is moving away from our rest and digest. It's moving away from our immune system. Now, our clients, as you know, they're walking around constantly in fight, flight, freeze. They're constantly in this state. So their immune system's going to suffer. They're going to get sick a lot more often. And I'm not just talking about those that have dealt with trauma. I'm talking about athletes. I'm talking about like people that are, performers. I'm talking about, when they're walking around this state of fight, flight, freeze, we are not resourced. We are not in that resource state. That resource state is flow.
We're in survival.
Yeah, we're in survival mode, right?
Yeah.
We're in survival. And by the way, that works great when there is a threat, right?
Sure.
You don't be calm and meditative when there is a tiger. Like, hey, what's going on, tiger? Come on, let's meditate. Obviously, right? So there is a time for fight, flight, freeze. And by the way, it has served us. It has marked the upward rise of us as a dominant species on the planet, if we were to get all
It has worked.
But it works horrible for change. It works horrible for growth. It works horrible for getting what we want because it's trying to keep us in that lukewarm.
It's a different anchor, man. It's a different anchor altogether, right? It anchors you into safety, into being mindful and careful, but it certainly doesn't allow you to kind of break free from those shackles.
Yeah, and you called it's survival. Well, what people call the comfort zone, I don't think is really all that comfortable. It's really more
just a known zone.
It's the known zone. I like that. Or the survival zone.
It's survival. That's all that most people are walking around in, because most people are walking around in hypnosis and they're constantly being triggered.
Yes.
So it is a survival thing. It's a low grade survival. It's a mental made up survival.
Right.
Because nobody's, having to hunt and gather for food.
Because, we don't live in a perfectly safe world, but compared to our ancestors, certainly, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, I'm talking about the comparison.
Yeah. So two concepts on this I'd like to talk about. So we talk about fight, flight, freeze. I believe that freeze is even more frustrating to our hunter-gatherer mind. And here's why, right? So as we see the tiger, we're going to fight, flight, right? Freeze. We're going to freeze first. We're freezing. We're looking at each other like, okay, we got a little spears. Are we going to split up and run? Maybe one of us survives, right? Are we going to try and fight this thing? Are we going to fight or run? And our blood is moving to our limbs so we can fight the thing, or to our legs so we can run. Well, we're sitting there frozen. What happens if we don't run? What happens if we don't fight? What happens if we sit there like three idiots with a big smile on our face and that tiger's hungry? We're going to become dinner, right? So I think our hunter-gatherer mind really understands that freeze is even worse, right? If we're fighting, we're doing something, even if we get eaten. If we're running, at least we're trying something, we're doing something. But the number one word that I hear in my practice is stuck. Right? I'm stuck in this dead-end job. I'm stuck in this dead-end marriage. I'm just stuck in life. I'm stuck at this level as an athlete. I know I can take it to the next level. I'm stuck at this level as an artist, a comedian, and I want more. We want more, right? It's not that who we are isn't great. It's we want to create a new identity so we can get more. But here's the thing. In modern times, it's not the tiger that sends us in fight, flight, freeze, because as you said, Tina, we're not dealing with tigers for the most part, unless you live in an area of the world where there really still are tiger threats, and there are. People do still die to tigers in India and Sri Lanka and places like that. It's the threat to our identity. So that threat to our identity, either who we are or who we want to be, that's what sends us in fight, flight, freeze. So it's a perceived threat to our identity. It's usually not even a threat. So I give my clients 4 questions right out in the first session, right to start shaking the story. Because what happens is they're all coming in stuck in a story, right? And they want to be telling themselves and living another story. So how do we get them there? And again, hypnosis is my number one tool for that, so that we can change out those knowns in that programming. And we can obviously talk a little bit more about how that actually works for people. But so when that threat comes up to the identity, we go in that fight, flight, freeze, even though it might not be. So is this story that I'm telling myself true? Most of the time, the stuff we're telling ourselves is not even true, right? Most of the time. Now, sometimes it's true. So the next question is it serving me? Is it serving me, right? It's never serving my clients, or they wouldn't be investing good money in their change and working with a coach like me and working with somebody that's going to help them. So obviously the story is not serving them, Okay. So the third question now, we want to start moving from the threat to the quantum, into the possible solutions, which are infinite, right? Whereas we're only focusing on the threat, we're only seeing one thing and we're not resourced. Now when we start to move, so what are all the other things that could be true when I move away from the threat, right? What are all the other things that could be true? And so now we're starting to ask ourselves better questions, right? And then finally, what's the gift in it? How does this move my story forward? How does this change my story? What's the gift in this? And it's not so important that we even have an answer to that, because we know several things about questions. Questions have an assumption in them and a direction in them. So for example, if I say, why does this always happen to me, right? Well, that's when my mind is going to go, okay, well, Joe, what do you want from 6 days ago, 6 hours ago, 6 years ago, when you were 6 years old? We got a whole bunch of crap here. What do you want to focus on?
Right.
And now I'm going to start to see my reticular activating is set on looking for those things all the times when crappy things happened, right? And so now I'm going to be noticing, prioritizing evidence, avenues of that, proof that that's happening. Whereas if I go, what's the gift in this? My brain might go, I don't know, but can I get back to you? I'm on the problem. And now it's almost like a spam filter, right? It's like a spam filter. And so if that spam filter is set to only let in things that serve you, so you may not even have the answer to what's the gift is in it, but now your mind's looking for evidence there's a gift in it. It's going, what about this? What about this? Maybe this makes you stronger. Maybe this is showing you you're not in the right relationship. Maybe it's showing you need another boss, a different, and so as we're doing that, now resources flood to us. We start to notice evidence, avenues, proof that we're moving closer to our goal, closer to our manifestation, closer to what it is that we want. And so in the assumption, if I say why does this always happen to me? The assumption is things are happening to me. I'm a victim, right? And then the direction is looking for, my reticular activating system is looking for signs I'm a victim, proof I'm a victim.
And you're perpetuating that loop.
Yes. And then you're stuck in this loop, right? And so now when you go, what's the gift in it? You're assuming there's a gift in it and that you will find that gift. And now your reticular activating system, your priorities are going to be on looking for proof of that.
I like it.
Go ahead, Tina.
No, I was just gonna say, I like it. That's my way of path of least resistance. When there's something that I don't like that's happening, I just say, I like it. That way I take away the resistance and it gives me a little bit of space to negotiate out with my own subconscious mind. Like, oh, okay, so that's what that is, but I need to find something else that I like more. Like, I don't get into the weeds. So I've kind of just taken that on as my way of saying, I like it.
I like it.
See, there you go.
I like it.
Hey, it works.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's back to like feeding the what wolf are you going to feed, right? You know that story,
that's
right?
That is one of my favorite all time. What do we call it? Sayings, memes, you know. You do you want to give for the listeners?
No, I want to hear you. I talk enough.
So the way I understand it is, grandfather's talking to a young boy, kind of in the tribe. And the grandfather says, there's two wolves fighting over your heart, fear, right, and love. And the little boy says, well, which wolf wins, grandfather? The one that you feed, the one that you feed. And it's
so simple and powerful, though.
Yeah. And it's
really is. I mean, it's the epitome of and now you said you gave Joe D credit for this, where your attention goes, your energy flows. Isn't that Kappas?
Listen, maybe, because, because
Joe D is a graduate from HMI. See, he studied, he calls out, giving credit to Dr. Kappas for, turning the word to hypnosis into hypnotherapy and really, really set Joe on his path. I mean, of course, Joe took it to a whole nother level, but.
Well, what I like that Dispenza's doing is he's taking kind of the woo stuff and, and really studying it. They're doing all the brain scans and they're seeing what happens when we go into this deep theta state that you can get through deep meditation, through hypnosis, through breath work, through all of these modalities that we teach at HMI and that we use with our clients. And, one of the really powerful things about that, where your energy goes, is now he is showing, I just went to the workshop here in Los Angeles a couple months ago. And they were showing not just brain scans, but they were showing here's stage 4 cancer, a tumor. Here this woman is 6 months later after doing, And what he was saying from the studies is if you can get a good 30 minutes of theta in every day, so self-hypnosis, hypnosis with your coach or your therapist, deep meditation, that non-sleep deep rest that I talked about, that yoga nidra, the heart coherence that you also said, Tina. So it's insanely healthy. This is why you see the monks up in Tibet out there in the snow, for 12 hours a day, doing the breath work, doing Tumo breath work, which is basically what Wim Hof took, and made Wim Hof is Tumo breath work. It's a different kind of fire breathing. But back to is seeing these scans. They were showing this one woman who had such a bad, I think it was colitis or something. She had a part of her intestine removed, and she grew back part of her intestine, medically impossible. And so, what people call in modern day miracles is just us getting in touch with kind of some of these ancient practices of mind and body connecting. And I came very much from a psychology, an athlete, from the stock market. I was a psych major in college. And so I wouldn't say resistant to the woo, but I just wasn't. And it's funny, right? Because I think, Don, you're probably that way. I don't know which side you came in on, Tina, but we've got some folks that come in on very much on the woo side, and they kind of move toward the middle and learn NLP, and we on NLP and psychology we come and we learn, some of these other energy practices and things like that, and we realize it's all energy. Like, we are energetic beings. We are, we are vibrating. We think we're solid matter, but take out a real powerful microscope and you're gonna see you're gonna see vibration.
Absolutely.
So, Tina, woo or go ahead. I want to hear woo or.
I'm very much down the middle of woo, and
you're in the middle.
Did you come in one or the other, or did you kind of come in down the middle?
I think I'm always down the middle with it, but very woo, but very I'm very balanced in it. I did all of the things, imagery and NLP, and all of it. And recently I've taken on learning the singing bowls because of the vibration. And I spent maybe 90 minutes, 2 hours just sitting and playing in my living room. And for 2 days after that, I could literally hear that tone and that vibration in my inner ear just kept playing in there. And I'm like, what the hell is that? It's just the vibration. It runs through your body. It's the most amazing thing. So yeah, I've been practicing that, and I'm gonna put something together because I think it's an amazing event. I have done it multiple times now, where I've done singing bowls with hypnosis, and it's just incredible. But yeah, so the whole vibration thing is, we're made out of energy, right? Everything is energy, and if you can manipulate the sound and the energy and the vibration, then there's actual physical healing going on.
Yeah. And, we get into that with relationship stuff too. So it's an interesting dichotomy. Dr. Kappas, founded HMI, has, and he was a marriage counselor. So he did a lot of relationship stuff before getting into everything that he got into with hypnotherapy. So in this ENP model that we teach and that I use really a lot in my practice, pretty much, even if people aren't coming in with relationship issues, helping them to understand how they who they're going to be attracted to, who they're going to attract. And so it's very interesting that in that model, we very much attract our opposite, right? So the E will attract the P and vice versa. We have different priorities, we have different love languages, and that's very attractive. Now, we know that after the honeymoon period of maybe say a year and a half, 2 years, where everything's new and exciting, that those differences, as we kind of just not get lazy, but we have 60,000 message units coming in throughout the day, and we can only take in about 5% of that. So it's not that we get lazy, but it's just so much work and effort to be conscious all the time. That's because we're running subconsciously on that programming all the time. And so we both kind of fall back into being ourselves and think the other person changed. Right. And we stop thinking of those differences as sexy and exciting and vive la différence. It's like, oh my God, like at first, oh, he leaves his socks on the floor. It's kind of cute, and then it's like, if he leaves his socks on the floor again, he's gonna eat them, right? And it's those things that we used to think were cute now get like nails on a chalkboard. But in terms of the law of attraction, it's very much like attracts like. And right. So if you're in a low vibrational state wanting to attract a really high vibrational partner, that's not going to work. you're going to attract, and you're probably going to attract somebody a little less, because the relationship's only as healthy as its sickest person. And so even if you're the higher vibration person in that, your relationship is going to be where the lower vibration person is at. And so I think it's really fascinating. There's so many of the like kind of dualities and dichotomies and all of this. So much yin and yang with all of it. Even this idea of the woo and the kind of NLP, it coming together, the psychology. But yeah, I find it really fascinating.
I love it.
I wanted to mention one other thing when we talked about that idea of questions and the spam filter. So I have a propensity to lose my keys. But do we really lose our keys, right? Because I can look out and see that my Tahoe's in the driveway. I can know that I got in my house. But for example, last week, I'm rushing home. I got to get home and get my son to practice and feed the dogs. And I'm running, no surprise, a little bit late. And so I run in, and now I'm collect my son, and I'm trying to find my keys. And I'm like, I can't find my keys. I can't find my keys. Well, when we are telling ourselves a story, if we're using this simple example, we can't, when we're telling ourselves a story, see anything. So it's back to this 5%. So our spam's our spam filter. So when I'm going, I can't find my keys, I can't find my keys, I can't find my keys, nothing that's going to help me find my keys is going to get through. And so I'm going to start getting desperate. I was looking in the freezer, I was looking in a drawer I hadn't opened in 6 months. So I was looking behind the toilet, even though I didn't go in the restroom, until I stop. Right. Calm the body down, which is our subconscious, and ask a better question. When's the last time I had them in my hands? Right now, my spam filter switches, and all the stuff that's going to keep me from finding my keys is getting filtered out. And I'm going, well, okay, park the car, open the door, dogs met me. Oh yeah, I was running late, so I had to feed them. Went over to the dog. There they are over by the dog food. I would normally leave them, because now I'm resourced. Right now, I'm calmed down. I'm no longer in that fight, flight, freeze, which I was. I was like panicking. I got to get my son to practice. How could I have lost my keys? I just had them in my hands. Right. So as I'm telling myself that over and over and over, I can't find my keys. I can't find my keys. That mantra is going to manifest not finding your keys, as opposed to when's the last time I had them in my hands. That's the power of questions. Asking an empowering question.
Love that. I'm going to put you on the spot. We talked a lot about breath work. I'm going to ask you in that moment, right? So you're saying slow down, like what breath work, what technique, what like 4 in, 4 hold, 6 out, like what are you using personally for yourself to regulate that nervous system when the autonomic nervous system is just full blown fight or flight? What do you do?
So that's a great question. And yes, it is that autonomic response. It is that fight, right? So when we're doing breathing, the inhale is primal. It is fight, flight, freeze. It is preparing us, right? So if you're doing like a Wim Hof, like and my hair stands on end even when I just do 2 of those, right? So it's literally saying go time. We want the opposite of that. So on any of that, we want to emphasize the exhales, long, slow exhales. So like a 4, 7, 8, the heart coherence, but just stopping and just long, slow exhales. Because what's happening is when we see a threat, we're going to breathe like there's a threat. When we breathe like there's no threat, our resources come flooding back to us. So it is just that stop. Remember the old PSA for fire, stop, drop, roll, right? You're on fire or whatever, you're in a near fire, stop, drop, roll. Yeah. So I like the way you said it. When your nervous system's on fire, stop.
Right.
Drop whatever it is, roll back into the present moment, breathe, getting gratitude. Another great one is gratitude. Right? It's just like, because when you're in gratitude, here's what we all get wrong about gratitude. We think gratitude is just being complacent. I'm just in that comfort zone. I'm good. No, it's really saying thank you. And it gets us in receiving mode. Thank you, universe. Thank you, God. Thank you, source, whatever you believe in, right? I believe in belief. So thank you. It gets me in receiving mode. It says, I am very happy and I'm ready for more. I'm ready for more abundance. I'm ready for more love. I'm ready. Bring it on. Let's go. So that long, slow exhale and getting in gratitude, just that concept of stop, dropping, and rolling, right? Back to what Dispenza was talking about at his workshop is he got a big ranch and he's got his favorite stallion. And just like my German Shepherd, who is being nice and quiet over there now. Thank you, Luke. He said, when I go away on a trip or I go do a workshop or something and I come back, he's so excited to see me, right? And then he gets a little petulant. He's like, where have you been? I missed you this weekend. So Dispenza gets on his favorite horse and the horse like bucks him into the stall wall. So he walks him out to the middle of the paddock and sits him still, sits him still, showing him he's the rider. So there's this concept you probably heard of in Eastern philosophy, right? The elephant is the subconscious mind. So big, it's so powerful. It's 95% of everything that we do. We are the rider. That's the conscious mind just up there. And now unfettered, that subconscious mind can wreak havoc and go crazy and do a lot of damage like an elephant, but properly trained. So, the movie's coming out right now, Train Your Dragon. One of my favorite little journeys, hypnosis that I do with my clients is I say, okay, let's make the subconscious mind a dragon, right? Powerful, fire breathing, fly you anywhere you want if you train it properly. And we do this nice journey where you are training your subconscious mind towards whatever their goals are. So we're swapping out those knowns and unknowns, right? Swapping out something that's more known. And so what we're actually doing in that hypnosis is we're getting the little critical mind, that little 8, 9-year-old that's sitting on our shoulder, always judging, right? Going, I'm going to work out today. No, you're not, right? I'm going to go to the gym today. No, you're not. I'm going to eat good today. No, I'm not, right? Now, he or she's not trying to hurt us, right? But they are trying to protect us, and they definitely are trying to keep us small.
Mm.
The world, it's a big, scary world of that 8-year-old, right? So they're really trying to stay small. Hey, what do you want to do? Get on a podcast and get out there. Haters are going to come for you. What, you want to go meditate on a rock? A big bird is going to come and swoop you off and carry it back, pterodactyl or something.
What are you doing? Something unknown.
Yeah, why are you doing something unknown? Like, that's scary.
It's fun.
Yeah, but it's fun. No, it's scary. No,
It's fun.
And
Feel like it.
So in that hypnosis, it's like, hey, let's train and ride that dragon, and you be the rider. You're the one in charge. The conscious mind and your desires, your wants, your willpower is in charge. And my favorite quote, which I did my AHA presentation on, which is a presentation this adjacent to HMI, that people can go to the HMI website and the AHA website and kind of see a lot of different presentations there. Probably give them a really good flavor for the school too, if they're interested in looking into HMI. But I did it on the Jung quote, and it's my favorite quote. It's until you make, he calls it the unconscious, until you make the subconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. You'll just think you're lucky or not lucky. In other words, until you get your subconscious and your conscious mind in alignment, right? Because now that critical mind's not going to be kicking stuff out because you're in alignment. This is what I want. This is what I know, right? And hypnosis is the best tool I know for that. And so we're getting what we want and who we are in alignment.
Absolutely.
Powerful stuff.
I absolutely agree with that. They have to be in alignment. I'm all about balance. So
Well, we're all in alignment, so this is good.
yeah, it's great. I love it.
Last topic that we haven't gotten to yet that I was hoping to talk about is, I'm a big fan of this as well. And you and I were having a quick chat the other day, and you were talking about capital S self versus lower S self. Like, can we talk a little bit about that and
So the
hear your
S
thoughts
self
on it?
comes From Dr. Sorry to interrupt. The capital S self comes from Dr. David, I think it's David Schwartz, Dr. Schwartz, internal family systems. And it's similar, not exact. In NLP, we have parts integration. And so that higher S self is the parent. It's like that best version of us, right? It is, I call it the high vibration self. And if you think of all these little parts of us, so there's that little 8-year-old. Now, what he would say is there's a lot of those little 8-year-olds. He calls them refugees, right? Now, what was really interesting, because I know you are very open about going through your program and working with people in addiction and that sort of thing. And what was fascinating is when I heard him describe it. So he has these firefighters, and these are kind of like folks that are trying to put out a fire of our nervous system, right?
Right.
And he's talking about the addict as an example. I thought that would be the wounded child. And he said, no, that's actually a firefighter. That's actually trying to help the wounded child, just not with real high vibration things like drugs and alcohol, right? But that firefighter's trying. Now, in parts integration, there's a couple different ways. I do it a little differently than maybe the classic NLP like Tabs would do or something. He does it wonderfully. And so the way it's more classic is, okay, you have these two parts of you that are maybe you think in conflict. It's like, where's the Venn diagram in the middle that kind of meets? So you got maybe this guy that really wants to have fun and party, and they have this guy that wants to be a really great dad. It's like, well, are those two really necessarily mutually exclusive? What do they have in common? What do they both want? So that you can kind of integrate those parts. Now, what he would say, or the way I like to describe it, is let's say that you're all in a minivan. So the high vibration self might be driving sometimes, the capital S self might be driving sometimes, but usually it's deciding who's driving, who gets the executive chair. So you both know this. You're different on the podcast than you are with your students, that you are with your clients, that you are with, I'm a little different on stage than when I'm teaching a class where everybody's trained like we are. And then if I'm teaching somebody, one-on-one, I'm different. And so there's little different parts. Or I know Mike Mandel, really great hypnotist up in Canada. He calls them, what does he call them? Something identities. I want to do it justice, but you can look up Mike. I can't remember the name of what he calls it because it's really great, And so the one person we don't want driving is that little 8-year-old or any of the 8-year-olds, right? So our executive is that capital S self, that high vibration us, and they determine who's driving the bus based on what it is that we're going to be experiencing. So we want to integrate all of these parts of us so that that high vibration self is parenting. You could call it a little bit of like inner child work also in there. So that high vibration self-love is parenting up those other parts of us and determining who's driving the minibus, who's in charge, who gets the executive chair right now.
I like Mike Mandel.
Yeah, Mike's great.
I saw your brain trying to scan for that word that Joe couldn't get. Did you get it?
No.
Wow.
No.
Something
I know,
right? Yeah, something I
I want to say like micro personality, not like
Something
personalities, but it's something very like
identity.
what's the word? Identity. Thank you. It's not micro identity, but that's how I kind of
something like
internalized it.
Yeah.
But yes, I was scanning for it.
Tina, have you been to Hypnothoughts? You're there in Vegas now, right?
No, I'm here in LA. And I didn't go when I was there. It was kind of COVID-ish there, COVID light. So
yeah,
it's true.
I'm just asking. That's where I meant.
No, I haven't been, but I would have gone had it been, a little less intense. I don't really like where they held it either. So.
Have you attended, Joe? It's on my list. I just haven't found the absolute purpose for me to go, other than just to
Yeah, I spoke at
network
one of them
and experience something outside of HMI and what I've been taught.
It was nice meeting Mike and some other leaders in the industry and other folks like that. That was really cool. And, you get a lot of people all of like mind together. It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Sure.
I've only been once, but it was nice.
Right on.
That's what everybody has always said. It's just a really great time. So
yeah,
someday, soon.
It's a reunion of woo.
I mean,
it's a whole lot of woo going on, man.
It is a whole lot of woo, but there's something to be said for the woo.
Like a murder of one, it's a murder of woo. It's a collection of woo, right? Like murder of crows. That's what crows. Murder of crows, not flock. Murder.
Yeah, it's a murder.
Murder of crows. It's a murder of
crows. Yeah.
Yeah, it's but there's something to be said. I mean, I think Dispenza's kind of leading the way. He got tired of everybody saying woo and started putting down brain scans.
Yeah.
And is it Dr. Ishimoto, with the frequency and energy of the ice shards?
It's mind blowing.
Right? To watch that happen with the negative versus the positive words and feelings. I mean, that's not woo. That's freaking science.
Yeah. Can you further explain that for everyone? Because that's so powerful.
Can I explain it? Yeah. So he did an experiment where he was freezing ice. He did it with plants and ice.
I didn't know.
So so he did it with plants, and he had one room where you walked in and said negative things to the plants, and same type of plants in another room. People walked in and said positive things, and I'm not sure if it was a week or 2 weeks, but within a significant amount of time, the ones with the negative all died, and they were watered and fed the same, similar to the ice where he was freezing and saying positive things, and it turned into these beautiful snowflake crystals that you could see underneath a microscope. And the ones that they said negative things to were like sharp shards.
And not symmetry
No, they were just like it. When you look at it, you think anger, and when you look at the other ones, you're like, "Oh, that's beautiful." So that's science. That's not woo.
Yeah.
And there's one other thing. It's probably a bigger topic, and maybe we can talk about it next time we all get together. But there's this really great book. I think the last name of the gentleman's Robson, called The Expectation Effect. And it's really in line with, and what he's found, yes, there's the placebo and the nocebo effect, but it can be more than that, because hypnosis is not the placebo effect. Hypnosis is so much more powerful than just the placebo effect. Not that the placebo effect isn't powerful, but it's also this idea around our beliefs that there's a nocebo effect, right? So that positive, negative. So the power of the words and the mantras, yes. And at the same time, so we know that a placebo is, you give somebody a sugar pill, but they expect that it's a powerful painkiller. Now, what's actually happening is your mind is releasing into the body the natural opiates that you have, right? So it is actually having an effect on you. Well, what they found is even if people would get the side effects, even like, oh, this might give you a headache, even though it's going to clear, but they get the headache, even though they're not getting the actual pill, right? But the nocebo effect is what most people don't understand. The nocebo effect is if we believe something is true, it becomes true. It's the opposite. If we believe that we can't do something. So, when thankfully, I don't think they do this anymore. I like the circus as a little kid, but even then I wasn't crazy about like animals in captivity. But anyway, they take an elephant, a little baby elephant, and they put a big chain around its wrist and tie it to a post, right? And so it can't move, it can't get too far away. Now you would think as the elephant gets bigger and bigger and stronger and more powerful, they'd have to have a bigger chain, but no, it learns, it's conditioned just like we are, that it can't go past that limit. And so they put a little rope around it. And even though that elephant could take the rope out, take the tent out, take the town out, it's conditioned as it's this big elephant that it can't go past that. My other favorite one is they take a barracuda, big bad fish with lots of teeth, right? And they put it in kind of like the divide between Don and I Zoom ring. And the little fish that it eats is over here. The barracuda's over there. Don, you're the barracuda. And there's a glass divider, so it can't see the glass divider. And it tries to it gets hungry, tries to go after the little fish, bangs its nose or its beak or whatever what do you call a fish nose? Anyway, its nose, and it experienced pain. Think about this, going after what it wants, going after what it needs, right? And so it gives up. The minute it gives up, the folks running the test pull the glass divider, and now all the little fish that it would normally eat. So it is literally swimming in everything it needs. It's swimming in abundance. It's swimming in food. It's swimming in abundance. It will sit there and starve to death because it's been conditioned to associate the pain of going after what it wants. And isn't this what happens with our clients all the time? That known to them is pain going after what they want. And it is our mission, it is our privilege to help them to swap that out, right? So that they're not associating the pain with going after what they want. They're associating the feeling, right? A la like another favorite of mine, Neville Goddard. I think he's like the OG of all this, along with Wayne Dyer, coming from the feeling of what we want, not the feeling of failure.
Right.
When most people have just known failure and pain going after what they want, that's what they're associating with what they want, as opposed to the feeling of having it. Right? Not going through the pain of getting it, the feeling of having it. And so generally what our clients are coming in with is something they want that's not unknown to them, or it's an unknown for a while. Like when I went and got back in shape, went from being the college athlete to, in my 30s and, just kind of losing that. And then again, when I went to go get in shape, my little critical mind, no, you're not. Come on. Like we've heard you say this a million times before. Don't be disappointed. But it was that conditioning. Now that was unknown to me, but it had not been a recent known. And so that's why I had to recondition myself. I had to give myself credit at night. I had to thank my little critical mind, not fight with them. Hey, I know you're trying to help me, but I got this. I'm a big boy. I got this, right? But mostly what our clients want is something that's unknown to them. And so what we want to associate through hypnosis, through NLP, through all these modalities we're talking about is what they want with the feeling of what they want with the unknown of having it. And so now they're connecting a known feeling to an unknown thing so that they're much, much more resource to go after what they want.
I have to share a quick
They're
story.
also comfortable with it, right? So there's no resistance to it.
So there's no resistance to it. Yeah.
So it's so wild to me that you're talking about this, Joe. Recently, within the last few months, I've just been attracting a lot of people that are ready to quit smoking, like a lot. And I took on this thought that occurred to me that I use in the cognitive, and then later we'll apply some of it when we're in hypnosis. But I asked them who they are. What's their identity as a smoker, right? And it usually starts off as the rebel teen, because most people, after all the people I've worked with, the average age is about 13 to 16, right? And they start off as that rebel, cool. I mean, I relate to that. I was James Dean, smoking like a chimney. My nickname was Don the Dragon, okay? But so I lead the witness a little and I say, were you this and then that? And then, and I just kind of try to get them to think consciously about, right? So I'm pulling them out of their loop to think consciously, like, who am I when I smoke? Are you the avoider? Are you the isolator? Are you the emotional cripple? Like whatever, right? And then now give yourself permission to think about who you might be without it. And it's like the most foreign thing. It's everything that you just talked about. I'm literally lifting the glass to set the barracuda free. And they're like, I get this look like most people don't even begin to think about what it is that they might be like without it. It's fascinating. So thanks for bringing that up.
I love that. And that idea of the rebel too, because what's helped me, I don't do a lot of stop smoking, but I know this also helped a couple people that are close to me who had struggled with it long. My wife used hypnotherapy 20 years ago and never smoked again. And, but I had a family member that would kind of come back to it. And it was finally when that rebel was the non-smoker, right? And isn't it the time for this these days? So there's an ad campaign, you probably know this, right? So that a lot fewer younger people were smoking, and finally they got their ad campaign right. Instead of it's bad for you, it's this, it's this, it's this. They went, do you want all these old fogies in a boardroom making money off of you dying and blah, blah, and the minute the rebel, they made this younger generation, the rebels of not smoking, of being healthy in spite of big pharma, big tobacco and big, food. And that rebellion now works to the non-smoker side.
And the way I incorporate it is I give them a new mantra, right? And I say, channel that rebel, awaken that rebel, and have that rebel say, as soon as you have a thought, you smell one, think of one, see one, no.
Not me.
No. And my mantra is, I'm a permanent non-smoker. I'm in control. I am free.
Love it.
Yeah. Thanks for that, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Really, you guys are really good at this. Had a lot of fun.
You're not too bad either.
Right. You're killing it.
I love talking to you, man. You're just like this wonderful stream of consciousness.
And just it's nice, it's not like I haven't been on podcasts and had fun where they don't know anything about this stuff, but it's nice, when you're trained. I was just on with Laurentina and Trisha, and because we're all trained in the same way, it's so nice to feed off of each other and go different directions and pick up something new like you gave me. So it's nice.
Thanks for being here with us today. I appreciate you, man. I love you, brother.
Yeah, I love you too. Tina, it's great seeing you. And
it was wonderful to see you.
Tina, you want to close us out?
As always, our subconscious speaks. The question is, are you listening?
Thanks, guys.